Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to KAIZO. I know, right? Who would have seen that coming? What? I'm streaming more KAIZO. I never would have guessed. I'm gonna go for about 3 hours today, I'm thinking. Let's go until we watch this whole entire video. How about that?
Good morning, everyone.
Oh,
After 4 previous marathons.
no. Astral Spiffs can wait till another stream. We're gonna be watching this video by the Insightful Llama, who apparently rewrote the entire FNAF movie, and I was just curious, so I have to put it on. So we're gonna be watching that. Why is it cropped weird? I don't know. Yeah, we're gonna be watching this video. I'm gonna speed it up because it's 3.5 hours long, and I only can stream for 3 hours. So we're gonna put it on like 1.15 times speed. So.
Morning, everyone. I hope your day is going well.
Yeah.
I am honestly
It's not
sure how to introduce this video. 1 year ago today,
all right.
movie dropped in theaters, and I had a fantastic time with it.
All right. I guess we're ready to
I went
start.
to go see it
Oh,
with
let me
my
pull up
then
the
friend, now husband, and we had a really amazing time. The movie is so
pull up
clear
the
love letters
attempt
to the
counter.
FNAF community, and it was just amazing to see how
W
it's
music
thought,
choice. All right.
especially since it's a movie that we didn't think we were ever going to see because of all the production issues. The fact that it exists is a miracle, and I'm so glad
Alright,
it
I'm done.
does.
I'm
It
not.
was clearly made
Ooh, we're starting off today with the right gang. You love to see it. I honestly should start off every single KAIZO stream with the right gang, but
now that some
whatever.
time has passed, I think it's also safe to say that it is not a perfect movie. In fact, I think there's quite a few things that could be changed for the better. So I decided to try and make a video talking about that.
Oh,
This started as a review where I eventually give my suggestions for how it could be
Box.
improved, but
suggestions for
the
box.
scope of the project
Suggestions for box.
kept getting bigger and bigger, and eventually I had to make
Not to.
I could either
To not to.
where I talk about the problems I think it has, and
We got Fading Tech though.
writing and
We're at the W
within it,
this game.
or I could make the rewritten version of the movie that now existed inside my head. I chose the second one. This is
Honestly, there's a music video.
of the 596
Well, it's not a music video. It's a
I'm super excited
song
for
that I have a music video idea for, but I don't know how to animate, so I can never bring my dream to life.
I'll say that I'm pretty happy with how it's all come out. Because of the
That's
direction
nice.
this whole thing took, I won't be going into detail about why I changed certain things. So please, if you have any questions about
This video's 3.5 hours long. How is that possible?
please leave a comment and I'll be happy to
Pichu?
talk about it.
I'm
Please read the
fricked.
content warnings at
I have to fight a Reiko, bruh.
dark topics, and
I'm
I don't wanna be
screwed.
caught off guard. Full disclosure, I am not a movie writer or a professional storyboard artist.
Reiko!
I'm full of excitement and passion. With all that said,
That's nice, dear.
to start.
Bro, I swear I'm pressing down.
Video, and I really hope you enjoy this massive
I mean, I don't
project.
swear, that's
See
bad.
you on the flip side.
Okay, guys, come on. Whose phone just went off? Alright, come on, guys. Steel Ix, I could have Flint and Steel Ix.
Start with a cold open.
Oh,
Similar
I
to
watched the
the
Minecraft movie for the first time yesterday.
office that we all know so
Um,
well.
Oh,
Full
yeah.
security doors are down, and they're
Yay.
clearly frantic. It looks like they've had
Thought I'd let you guys
pretty
know.
rough night, and it's about to get worse.
Because it was finally free to watch, so I'm like, yeah, why not?
We sit there.
Flint and Steel.
For a few seconds, a music box begins to play as a pair of glowing eyes appear in the left doorway. The security guard sits in terror for a few moments, but then fear gets the better of them, and they run out of the office the other way, trying to get away. It looks like they might at first. There's no one in the hall, and it seems like the way to the front exit is open. But before they can get very far, something steps out of the shadows. Bonnie blocks the path. The security guard turns and runs, making for the emergency exit, their last ray of hope. They make it, but it won't open. What is that? Faint humming? They slowly turn. At the end of the hall stands Foxy. The guard is frozen in place, the inevitability of their fate not quite sinking in. They start quietly pleading, then frantically struggling.
How in the world did I win that fight?
Foxy slowly begins to...
Does this video have captions?
First, but then breaking into a sprint. The scream of the guard
No.
is drowned out by Foxy's own shrieking as the screen slams to black.
Would have been
And
nice.
the title Five Nights at Freddy's fades in. From here, we fade to the
That's
opening credits.
probably the most generic
The front
strike
of a card
to any
has
Five Nights at Freddy's
several
movie you could ever have, but
areas.
it's whatever.
Various credits fade in and out. Music plays throughout the introduction, and when the car finally stops, we find that it's playing from the radio. The song stops, and our news anchor announces that it's a beautiful Wednesday evening. Before they can get much further, the car turns off, and the final credit shows the audience that the driver is Mike Schmidt. He's looking nervously at the house. He wants to go knock, that's why he came here in the first place, but he can't seem to find the courage to get out just yet. We can hear a voice softly calling Mike's name. Eventually it gets loud enough and it jumps us back into a flashback.
Isn't that
Mike is
Carrot?
Startled out of his daydream by the cashier. That's 2 banana splits, right? Yeah, sorry.
Banana splits
And
movie.
a small cone. Coming right
That
up.
was in
What's the occasion? What? Well, I mean, this is a lot of ice cream for one guy. What's the occasion? Oh, no, it's not all for me. It's, my aunt and sister are coming to see me at work. Oh, that's nice. Has it been a while since
No,
you
it's
saw
not.
them? That question seems to hit a little bit close to home. Mike sounds a little strange when he says that, yeah, it's been a while. He's clearly nervous about whatever this meeting is, and he wants it to go well, even though he doesn't have much confidence that it will. The cashier either pretends not to notice or doesn't notice that he's nervous, and just keeps chatting away, talking about how, oh, it's so hard to visit family that's far away, and do you have any family around here? Mike is looking around for Aunt Jane and Abby and not really paying attention. As he's surveying, he catches sight of a man grab a child by the arm and pull them away. Everything starts to fade out of focus.
Frick.
Noises grow quieter as all
Dead
we
end
can
file.
focus on is the two walking.
It's just a miracle I got past the starter, honestly. I wasn't meant to make it that far.
He starts jogging after them and breaks into a run, looking panicked. He yells after them to stop, and as he reaches them, he tackles the man into the fountain.
So, she barely changed the scene. The only thing that she changed was the interaction with...
Still a little shell-shocked by what he just did. He catches a glimpse of the ice cream counter where he just was. Abby doesn't see him, but Aunt Jane does. Her expression is a mixture of horrified, confused, and absolutely furious. Back in the present, we're with Mike in the car as he continues to stare at the house. What happened is clearly weighing on him, but eventually he manages to gather himself and exit the car. He knocks on the front door, and Aunt Jane answers, and she is not happy to see him.
Why?
Mike wants to apologize to Abby for missing what was supposed to be their first meetup in a long time, but Aunt Jane is not having any of it. She thinks Mike shouldn't be there at all, and she's definitely not planning on letting him in the house. Aunt Jane is determined that he's not getting in, but Mike is determined that he is going to apologize to his sister, and the two start arguing. Mike insists that Jane needs to give him a chance to make things right, and Jane points out that the ice cream meetup was his chance, and he instead decided to beat a man unconscious. Frankly, he's incredibly lucky that he didn't have to serve jail time. Their argument starts to get a little more heated, as Aunt Jane talks about how he's been a delinquent for years, always causing trouble. Why on earth should she trust him with a child that's recently traumatized? Mike is frustrated, but he's trying really hard not to let it get to him, until she happens to mention someone named Garrett. This changes things.
Garrett!
Before, Mike was defensive, but trying to keep it together. This makes him truly, deeply angry. He immediately cuts her off. Don't talk about Garrett. Whoever Garrett is, and whatever happened with that, it's very clear that Mike doesn't want to discuss it with anyone, let alone someone who's planning to use it against him. Before she has any chance to respond, he continues, saying that Abby clearly hates it here, so why doesn't she just mind her own business? The two look primed to actually start hitting each other, but before they can, Abby appears, running to the front door and talking about how excited she is that Mike's come to visit. A very awkward silence follows, with Abby getting nervous and asking what's going on. In the face of this, Jane relents a little, saying that Mike is staying until she finishes making dinner. This is good enough for Abby. She grabs Mike's hand to drag him to a room, and he follows along. Aunt Jane glares as he goes past, letting him know that he really shouldn't push his luck here. Abby leads Mike through the house, and as they walk, it's clear that he hasn't really been there before. Or if he has, it's not enough to be familiar with the layout. The place isn't necessarily unwelcoming, but it definitely has the tidiness of someone who is not used to having children around. Abby's room greatly contrasts to this. There are drawings all over the walls, toys all over the floor. It seems she's generally left to her own devices and in her own little world that she's created here. She excitedly starts to show Mike everything, all the drawings on the walls, all the books on the shelves, just basically everything.
Here it is. Rivals, huh? Are they like rival families? Rival clans. It's technically inaccurate since lions and tigers don't live on the same continent, but I like it anyways. Look, I drew a picture. That's me. I'm defending the territory from jackals.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, Abs. Who's that next to you?
I hate that, by the way.
That's you, duh.
Don't call me abs.
Really?
Right.
Wow, I love it.
Kill.
Are we, always fighting off jackals?
No, there's lots of enemies. The hippos are the worst
Yo,
ones.
she said
You
hippos and I
can't
just got a
fight
hip out on. That's
them. You have to
insane.
be smarter than they are.
Really? Hippos?
A hippo can kill you easily, Mike.
What? No way. I bet I could take one.
They can literally bite you in half.
So I'll just be faster. Duck out of the way.
They can run 19 miles an hour.
Well then, obviously, I'll just run 20 miles an hour. Duh.
You're so stupid. You can't run that fast.
Why is this hip out on like actually like really freaking good?
The conversation descends into lighthearted banter, with Mike asking more about the book and Abby being happy to share. In the back of his mind, Mike is still worried about the situation with Aunt Jane, but he's always been able to forget about his problems when he's spending time with Abby. The two are very close, and the time they've spent apart hasn't done anything to change that, even though they've both clearly missed each other. As Mike is asking questions, he eventually brings up school, and the mood changes entirely. Abby is much less willing to talk about that. Mike decides not to let it go, just prodding at her a bit, trying to figure out what's going on. He knows Abby loves to learn, and so he really would like to know what the problem would be. Eventually, Mike's gentle needling is effective, and Abby tells him that she doesn't really have any friends at this school. She's done her best to talk to people and
How's that
put herself
Icarus
out there like Aunt Jane has told her to, but
That was a
no one seems
rumor.
to want anything to do with her.
Almost
And anyone
always a
who does
rumor.
want to talk to her just wants to talk about how Dad left. Mike isn't really sure how to respond. Their father is clearly a delicate subject for him, and he has his own problems that he hasn't sorted out with it, but he tries to give advice anyway. He tells her that if she just ignores what's going on, after a while, people will forget what happened with their dad. She just has to stick it out until people stop bringing it up. After that, it'll be easy to make friends. In the silence that follows, Mike takes the opportunity to properly apologize for missing the ice cream meetup. He tried to do it earlier, but Abby kept talking over him, almost like she didn't want to think about it. Abby gets quiet and asks why he missed it. Mike once again has some trouble answering. He doesn't know how to explain what happened. He's ashamed of it, but he doesn't want to lie at her either. Eventually he just tells her that he made a mistake. He saw something he thought was a problem, but it wasn't what it looked like. And he rushed in without thinking about it. That's something he does sometimes if he's not careful. Abby is quiet for a second, then asks if that's why they wouldn't let Mike take care of her after Dad left. Mike looks
Yo,
pained,
Poketail, welcome in.
eventually
Thank you.
says that,
Appreciate it. I
yeah,
am, but
that's one of the
I'm not
reasons.
gonna say no.
There's another
Okay.
silence. This
Got in
one
here just in time. We got a pretty good hip out on here.
last. Eventually, Mike breaks it. Try to be good for Aunt Jane, okay? Mike, I hate it here. She never listens to what I try and talk, and she smells like cigarettes. Hey, don't be mean. You know she's been trying to quit.
It's a funny line.
She's trying her best, Abs. I thought you hated
What are you
Aunt Jane.
watching? This person apparently rewrote the entire Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and so I'm just watching that.
He's clearly remembering the
This video's
fight
3.5
with
hours
his
long.
dad, and is regretting what he said. I don't hate Aunt Jane. She and I, we don't agree on a lot of things. There's a lot that he can't really find the words to explain all the complex everything that is between them, but he eventually tells her that both of them care and want Abby to be taken care of. As the conversation continues, it's clear that Aunt Jane is stiff and stuffy and not very good with children, but she's trying anyway, and that's worth something. The camera backs out of the open doorway to show that Aunt Jane has been standing there, listening. We don't know how long she's been there, but she looks conflicted.
Oh, look at it. Oh, actually,
Mike
never.
tells
It's grass
Abby
counter.
that he knows it's been hard, but can she please try for Aunt Jane? Just a little bit? Abby is hesitant, but promises that, yes, she can try. The conversation moves on to lighter topics from there, with Mike teasing Abby to break up the tension. Aunt Jane eventually steps into view and knocks on the doorframe. Dinner's ready, it's time for Mike to go. Abby is disappointed that he's leaving and asks if he'll be visiting again soon. Mike hesitates and eventually says that they'll just have to see. Abby goes to wash up for dinner, but not before giving Mike a hug and one of the drawings she made. She hopes she'll see him again soon. After Abby leaves, there is once again a stifling silence. Mike doesn't know what to say, and he's not sure how to gracefully leave, so he eventually says he's just gonna go. But as he heads for the door, Jane interrupts him. Do you know what next Saturday is, Michael? April 8th? Abby's birthday. Yes. To be entirely blunt, Michael, I think you've wasted a large portion of your life. Even before my sister passed, you made decisions that I can't begin to understand, and you're certainly a terrible influence on your sister, especially considering your most recent actions.
Like, no reason.
Mike stands, absorbing all this. Unlike at the door earlier,
Did he do something we don't know about, or is she just making crap up?
He doesn't have the energy to disagree or defend himself because, honestly,
Yeah.
he finds she's sort of right.
Oh.
He's done a lot of things he's not proud of, especially this most recent incident, and he doesn't really have the energy to deny it or justify himself right now. Jane notices this and continues in a slightly kinder tone. But no matter what I think of you, Abby turns 10 next week. Her teachers tell me it's a big milestone, double digits or something. Regardless of what I think or feel about you, I'm sure Abby would want you there. If you were to get a job and still have it by next Saturday, I don't think it would be too bad for you to make an appearance at her party.
So that's the
Mike
incentive
has
this
no
time
idea
for
what to say.
getting a
He's
job?
caught somewhere between saying thank you
I
and
mean,
confirming
yeah, it's
that
the same
Jane isn't
goal,
somehow messing
just
with
a
him.
different
He
incentive, I
manages
guess.
to pull himself
I don't know if
together
that's
a
the right
little
word, but
and
I
say
bet.
that yes, of course he'll get a job, and yeah, he'll have it for the party, absolutely. Jane looks at him and tells him not to make her regret it. Mike takes that as his cue to leave, but he can read between the lines as well. It's amazing that he has another chance, but if he messes this up, he's not getting another one. It's all or nothing this time. He steps out the door and Jane closes the door behind him, curtly telling him not to drive too fast. Mike says he won't, then quickly tries to apologize for earlier, but the door shuts before he can. As Mike walks to his car, we get a strange shot. We're looking at him leaving from some distance away, from the driver's seat of a purple car. As he crosses the street, the camera follows,
I'm a
as if
physical
we're
attacker.
observing through another pair of eyes. Back in his own car, Mike is tired, but determined. This plan to go apologize to his sister had gone much better and much worse than he had expected, but he has a plan now. He starts the car, muttering to himself as he does. He can get a throwaway job by next Saturday, no problem. From here we have a montage of the next several days as Mike tries and fails to find another job. He applies for dozens of different positions with dozens of requirements, and seems to be rejected every single time. The sun rises and sets, and he gets more desperate, but still, there is no good news. Occasionally through the montage, if you're paying attention, you can catch sight of a purple car in the background of some shots.
Purple
Eventually,
guy.
the montage ends with Mike in an office, in front of a career counselor. Mike is clearly at the end of his rope here. He's desperate for just something, anything. He will do literally anything. But the counselor doesn't seem sympathetic. Or rather, they do, but they're not about to be gentle when they tell him that he is not getting a job anytime soon. He has a terrible job history, and he just got slapped with an assault charge. There is no way he's getting a job. As Mike gets frustrated, they suggest that maybe he can come back in another day. Who knows? Maybe something will change. Mike isn't an idiot, though. He can see that this is mostly a platitude. Things aren't going to change, at least not quickly enough. As he goes to leave, his frustration starts to boil over. He tries to slam the door, but it has one of those anti-slammer mechanisms, so it slows down and quietly clicks shut behind him. Once Mike gets outside, he tries to kick a trash can, but it has its own anti-slam mechanism in the form of being bolted to the ground. Honestly, this day just couldn't get any worse. Hey! God. Whoa there. Just me. Someone's jumpy. Sorry, what? Mike is very confused at the sudden appearance of this man, but he doesn't really have time to ask questions. Mystery Man introduces himself as Dave Miller. And, well, he really couldn't.
The most American-sounding name I've ever heard in my life.
That Mike needs a job? Because, if so, they can help each other. See, he's been having some trouble with vandals breaking into an old building he owns, and he'd like to hire a night guard to keep an eye on it. But oh, it's so hard to find someone who can work nights. He acknowledges that the hours are pretty bad, and he can't pay all that well, but it seems like Mike might be interested. Mike is, justifiably, weirded out by this guy. He just appeared out of nowhere with the magic solution to his problem, and that is strange. But, as weird as this is, he does need a job, and it doesn't seem like he's gonna get one through normal avenues. He hesitantly asks what being this night guard actually entails, and Dave is quick to tell him it's super easy. He just has to keep an eye on the cameras and keep out any burglars he might see. You could probably do it in your sleep. Mike can see how suspicious this is from a mile
Do it
away,
in your sleep,
but
and this is a night shift.
yes, he thinks he would be interested. Dave is immediately ecstatic. Oh, thank you so much. You're doing me such a big favor. This is gonna be fantastic. You won't regret it. Mike tries to ask if he needs to sign some papers, but Dave just gives him a paper with an address typed on it and tells him to be there at 10 p.m. on Monday. He climbs into a familiar purple car and drives away before Mike has the chance to ask any more questions. Mike stares after him for a second, but before quietly accepting that this is happening now. We follow him as he goes back to his apartment. It's in a very run-down part of town, and the apartment itself is very bare bones. Where Aunt Jane's apartment was clean because she liked everything to be just so,
Oh, sure, clutch.
Mike's apartment has the cleanliness of someone who doesn't have anything that needs cleaning. There's almost nothing personal about the space. The only thing we can see that seems to belong to him is a Walkman with headphones and a stack of tapes next to it. This doesn't really feel like a place Mike lives in. It's more like a place he just stops in once in a while when he's not out and about. Eventually it starts to get late, but Mike doesn't seem to want to go to bed. Even though there's nothing to do in the apartment, he still keeps looking around, almost like he's avoiding it. But finally, he has to admit defeat, and he heads to the bed. He looks at it, oddly, somewhere between skepticism and dread. On the nightstand, we can see that the drawing Abby gave him is put on display. It's about the only bit of color and personality in the whole apartment. Mike looks at it, and it seems to cheer him up a little bit, and he uses that to rally himself for whatever it is.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna do some math.
He turns off the bedside light and eventually manages to fall asleep. From here, we enter a dream. There's a family camping in the woods, and we see a younger Mike with his parents and someone else we don't know. It's a nice scene, almost serene. Just a family spending time together, casually. Mike's mom asks him to keep an eye on Garrett, and he starts
Garrett!
But something distracts him. When he turns back, Garrett isn't there, and something's wrong. The colors start to change, their brightness fading to more subdued, worried undertones. The wind kicks up a little bit, causing strange, eerie rustling from the trees. Hears a car door slam, and when he turns, he's just in time to see a car begin speeding away. Garrett's confused face is staring at him from the back window. The young Mike screams out Garrett's name and starts running. As the trees go by, he becomes an adult, still sprinting even though the car is getting farther and farther away. There's no way he can catch it.
Garrett!
What else can he do? He's running, the world is getting darker, the wind louder, and the car is getting farther away, and there's no way he could ever catch it, but he has to try something! Mike starts awake. The room is dark and quiet except for his heavy breathing. After a second, the breathing slows, and he carefully gets up. He flicks on the dim lights in the bathroom and splashes his face. We hold here for a few moments. As Mike calms down, a bit of frustration starts to surface, but just like at the career counseling center, there's nowhere he can put it. He thumps his fist on the counter, but it doesn't seem to help. He looks overwhelmed, exhausted, frustrated, but not surprised. This nightmare is new to the audience, but it's something very familiar to him. He's had it before, often enough that it doesn't surprise him in the slightest.
Bad energy ball,
As
there's no way
awful
I
as
was gonna
this
live.
makes him feel, it seems like it's familiar territory. It looks for a moment like he might allow his emotions to get the better of him, but he abruptly straightens and leaves the room. Moving in a way that's clearly practiced, he grabs the Walkman and starts listening to music in the headphones, loud. Even though it's already spotless, he starts to mindlessly clean the apartment, doing his best to do everything but think about what just happened. Just as we can see that the nightmare is normal, we see that this routine of cleaning and listening to music is also normal. This is clearly something he always does. Shove aside what the dream reminds him of and just do his best to avoid thinking and feeling anything about it. In the next scene, we're following Abby. It's a Monday morning at school, and she's clearly very nervous. After Aunt Jane drops her off, she stands on the sidewalk for a while, not really sure where to go. Eventually, she just starts to head for the classroom. Aunt Jane has given her some invitations for the party on Saturday. She seems a little
I
excited
missed
about
so
that,
many
but
times.
mostly apprehensive. As she heads for the classroom, she's intercepted by some of her classmates, who tease and shove her around a bit about how her dad left and what is she doing at a school like this anyway. Abby pushes past and does her best to follow Mike's advice. Just ignore
look
them.
like
Just
Electrode.
ignore them, just like Mike said. Throughout the first part of class, we see more examples of this bullying happen. People talk behind her back, make fun of her, just all sorts of nasty things. There's a couple times where she manages to screw up the courage to give someone an invitation to her party, but It never seems to go well. They either reject it outright, or she finds the invitation in the trash a few minutes later. All in all, it's not a good experience, and she's fully miserable by the time her aunt comes to pick her up. And the worst part is, she seems to be used to it. Classmates seem to take every opportunity to jeer at her and make fun of her for everything from her outfit to her upbringing to her broken family situation. And she doesn't seem surprised.
I thought I could pair
by
flinch to
anything.
victory.
Through it all, she just
I almost
does
did,
her best to
actually.
keep
I just
her head
got
down
unlucky.
and ignore it. Aunt Jane tries to start a conversation about how the day went, but Abby is not in the mood for any talking, which is frustrating for Jane. When Jane asks about the invitation specifically, Abby peevishly tells her that no, actually, she thinks the party will be fine with just Mike there. She doesn't want anyone else. The two have a bit of an argument about this that doesn't really go anywhere and leaves both of them feeling annoyed and dejected, and the two of them drive home in stony silence. Even though Aunt Jane has been taking care of Abby for a while, she clearly doesn't have the same level of communication that
A great
Mike does.
moveset for
Once they get home, Abby goes
one with
straight
awful
up to her room
stats.
and can't be prompted to come out no matter what Aunt Jane does. In her room, Abby pulls out a stuffed tiger that she'd apparently been keeping in her backpack the entire day. She tells it about all that happened and how she really, really hates
Are
this
you an
school,
idiot?
but Mike is coming on Saturday, so she can hold out till then. Things will feel better. She knows it. From here we cut to Mike. He pulls up in front of a building with a sign saying Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Mike looks.
If we get Swords
absolutely
Dance or Dragon Dance, this thing actually would be good.
Looking at the place skeptically. It's totally dark, and the entire place seems old and deserted. There's a phone booth attached to the side of the building, almost out of sight. All in all, it doesn't look like anyone is there, or that anyone has been there for ages. He checks his watch, 9:52, so it's not like he's crazy early. He gets out and goes to look through the front door. The inside looks just as dark as the outside. As he's about to start kicking himself for looking into a job that clearly wasn't real, he's startled by the sound of an approaching car. He turns just in time to see a police car pull up, the officer quickly stepping out and approaching rapidly. Before he can get a word out, she's up in his face, demanding to know what exactly he's doing here. Doesn't he know this is private property? Mike tries to tell her she's here for a job, but she doesn't seem to be having any of it. Who does he think he is? What, is he a vandal, hoping to sleep in here? She continues to ask questions and demand answers. Mike is getting flustered and somewhat defensive, but even though he's annoyed, he knows better than to start a fight with a police officer, so he's really not sure how to handle this. Before things can escalate further, though, they're interrupted by another car approaching. Dave exits and calls out to them, and the officer's demeanor completely changes. She very meekly asks Dave if Mike is there for a job of some sort. Dave steps close to them and cheerfully confirms, yes, Mike is the new security guard. The officer nods and says, right, she'll be off then. She leaves almost more quickly than she arrived, like she's in a hurry to get away. Mike is completely thrown off by this interaction and asks Dave if he knows this officer. Dave says, oh yes, that would be Officer Vanessa. This place is on her patrol route, so she stops by sometimes. He quickly changes the subject and keeps up a steady stream of chatter as he unlocks the gate and punches in the code to the front door. He talks vaguely about how
oh my
he's so
gosh.
glad he found
Stab
the
machine over here?
place, and it may look old, but yo, you should have seen it in its heyday. Once they're inside, Mike takes the opportunity to look around a little.
The only thing
Seems
reason
pretty
of running this
standard
is
for
because if we
family
get a set it
restaurant,
move, we actually
even
might
though
be
it's
golden.
dusty and it looks a bit weird with all the lights off. He finally manages to get a word in against Dave's constant talking, asking what exactly his job is. Of course, how silly of me, getting distracted, just reminiscing, you know. But before I explain, do you want to meet the gang? Mike follows Dave to the curtained-off show stage, where Dave dramatically throws aside the curtains. Mike is a bit startled at the reveal. He doesn't know what he was expecting, but several animatronics...
Well, I do like the change of
taller than
him being more in the
around.
movie.
Dave introduces them as Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. They all stand.
That was one of my biggest complaints about the Finance for this movie is
Dave moves
purple
to
guy's
another
barely
animatronic
like in it.
stage and pulls that curtain open too, revealing a fourth animatronic. This one is named Foxy. It seems just as still as the others are. Mike realizes that Dave is staring at him expectantly, so he aims for a neutral tone and says, wow, that's pretty cool. Dave agrees, saying these guys are pretty state-of-the-art for the time, implying that the animatronics are probably what people would break in to steal. Mike is having a hard time listening as he keeps glancing at the animatronics standing there. He feels a bit uneasy as he's looking at them. Dave eventually says that he's so glad that Mike likes these guys. Some of the other people he tried to hire seemed to think they were pretty creepy. Dave turns to look at Mike, and there's a strange intensity in his gaze that doesn't fit with the conversation they're having. Mike isn't sure how to respond, and he eventually says, well, people say all sorts of things. Dave stares just a little too long. Then the moment breaks as he quickly yanks the curtain shut. Oh, yes, people say so many things. It's crazy how rumors can start so easily. He walks down the hallway fast. He'd better show Mike what he's meant to be doing. Mike follows, glancing one more time at the stages before they turn a corner. Dave leads the way down the hall, once again babbling about something or other. The first door they pass has a worn-down painting of Chica in a police uniform on it. The bird looks stern, with a speech bubble that claims, "Stop! Staff only beyond this point." As they walk, he explains that he can't afford to keep the power going all the time, so Mike will have a limited amount of power for his shift, which starts at midnight. Which shouldn't be a problem. You've got a pretty uneventful job. Another door they pass as they're talking has "Employees Only" written in all caps on it. They get to the office, and Mike digs through a box in the back, handing Mike a security jacket. This will be his uniform. After Mike puts it on, Dave hands him the key to the padlock on the gate and a piece of paper with his phone number, telling Mike to call him if there's any issues. Mike puts both in his pocket, and Dave starts to leave. He calls over his shoulder, reminding Mike not to use up all the power and to be in the office by midnight. He's not paying Mike to wander around. And with that, he's gone. Mike takes the opportunity to look around. The office is crowded, with stacks of old boxes and seemingly random knickknacks. In one corner, behind some boxes and under an old shirt, he finds a stack of what look like animatronic maintenance guides. Next to those is a flashlight that seems to work even though it's dim and he had to hit it pretty hard to get it to turn on. He starts to look in the lockers, but after finding a bizarrely creepy figurine, he decides he'll just leave them be. Eventually, the clock flips over to midnight and the power comes on, allowing the array of screens on the desk to come to life for the first time. There's clearly supposed to be a screen active for each camera, but most of them seem to be broken, showing nothing but static. The one in the center is the only one that seems somewhat reliable, requiring Mike to use the controls on the desk to flip through each camera manually. Mike notices for the first time the strange set of doors on either side of the office. He tests one and is very concerned when a reinforced door drops from the ceiling. But he ultimately decides that he doesn't need to think about this. He got a job, and he just needs to keep it until Saturday. And that'll be just fine. The first few hours, pretty much nothing happens. All is quiet, with Mike just occasionally going through the cameras. Eventually, though, as he's flipping through, he stops at the main stage. Weren't there 3 animatronics? The bunny, it's not there anymore. What was it called? Benny? Confused and concerned, he flips through the cameras, trying to figure out what's going on. And eventually he finds that the bunny has somehow moved into a storage closet. Mike picks up his flashlight and goes to check it out. Going through the place feels wrong, somehow. It had been off-putting before when he was there with Dave, but now it's gotten worse. The flashlight helps keep it at bay, but it really doesn't seem to be helping as much as it should. Eventually he finds the closet where he saw Bonnie. After taking a second to brace himself, he pushes open the door quickly. He'd been expecting to see an animatronic, and maybe the person causing it to move, but the closet's empty. This doesn't make any sense. The animatronic isn't exactly small. How could they have moved it so quickly? Maybe he just got the wrong closet. There's one right next to it that also has a camera. It's an easy mistake to make. Mike tries the handle, but it's locked. As he's turning to go and look elsewhere, he hears a click. He turns, and the previously locked door is slowly creaking open. Inside is pitch black. Mike stares. Slowly, he moves forward. Just on the threshold, he stops, calls out, "Hey." "Hey. Who's there?" He steps into the room. It seems that he's found some sort of workshop or animatronic repair area. A non-functional copy of Freddy is sitting on the table, facing away from him. Different parts and pieces are piled on the table and shelves, although most of that space seems to be filled with spare character heads. Most of them don't have eyes, but it still feels like they're staring somehow. Mike calls out again, fighting to keep his voice steady. "This is private property. Listen, if you come out now, I won't report anything. You just have to leave. So why don't you just come out? Make it easy for me." His voice trails off. The flashlight has come across something leaning against the wall, something that you can't see through the cameras. There's no sign of the person causing the bunny to move, but up against the wall is another Freddy. But it's different than the one on
Golden
stage or the one
Freddy.
that's sitting on the table. This is old and dirty looking, with several parts of it missing or broken. The color is different too. Instead of the dark brown that we're used to, it's a yellowish gold, with some parts of it going slightly green with age. Curiosity is occasionally more powerful than fear, and Mike steps closer, trying to figure out what exactly he's looking at. Mike is suddenly slammed with a confusing, jumbled mess of images flashing through his mind. It's painful and sudden, causing him to stumble backward, and a litany of sounds comes to join it. Children laughing, a scream, so much sound, it's too much. And through it all there's a voice, just trying to be heard, crying out. Mike manages to push himself upright, stumbling blindly to get out of the closet. Once he manages to get into the hall, the images slowly fade, sounds going with them.
They slowly fade.
What the hell? His head feels like it's about to split in two. He has no idea what he just experienced. As he slumped against the wall,
to deal with rock
trying
types.
to recover, there's suddenly a sound. He looks up. The missing animatronic bunny is standing at the end of the hall, staring at him. Mike steers back. Bonnie, that's right. It was called Bonnie, wasn't it? Bonnie takes a step forward. Mike continues to stare, and the rabbit takes another step. This finally gets Mike to move. Somehow, he hadn't lost the flashlight in the scuffle, and he shines it around, trying to see who or what could be making this thing move. He calls out again, saying, "It's a great joke, and they can come out now," but he's clearly starting to panic. Bonnie doesn't show any signs of stopping, and Mike can't find any sign that someone is moving it. It's just happening. The flashlight starts flickering again. Mike tries to bring it to life in the way he had previously, but it's beyond saving. It flickers one more time, and then dies, plunging the hallway into darkness. The rabbit doesn't seem to notice. Its eyes have a glow of their own, continuing to stare as it takes another step forward. This is too much for Mike. He turns and runs back to the office.
I just got 2 stone plates in a row. What the frick?
Once he gets
What are the
back, he
odds of
closes
that?
the metal door behind him and fumbles with the phone. He tries to call Dave, but the phone in the office doesn't seem like it makes outgoing calls. After seeing how much power the door is taking, he hesitantly opens it and finds that the hallway is empty. He checks the cameras and finds that Bonnie has returned to the closet he was in earlier. Although this time, he's staring at the camera. Mike spends the rest of the night alternating between pacing around and checking on Bonnie, who seems to switch between the closet and the front area. He's eventually startled when his watch goes off, signaling 6 a.m. and the end of his shift. He very cautiously makes his way to the main area and finds that all the animatronics are in their proper places. He pokes at them a little, just to check, but they don't show any signs of moving, so he has no choice but to leave, with no answers to what just happened. He finds Officer Vanessa waiting outside. She asks him how his first night was, and he has no idea how to respond. Eventually he says it was fine, and turns to lock the gate. Vanessa starts talking as he's closing up, saying that she just doesn't understand how anyone would take a job like this. She's pretty sure literally anything else would be better. This is a dead-end job, and honestly, does he really see himself working here in 5, 10 years? Mike doesn't really think that's any of her business, but he is, again, smart enough not to start a fight with a police officer, so he says he's just doing what he can right now. Seeing the phone booth attached to the building, he heads toward it. Vanessa follows and continues to talk. If you're thinking of calling your boss, he's not going to answer. Mike just sighs to himself and tries to find some change in his pockets. Vanessa gets really close until he's forced to look at her. Hey, I'm serious. The guys before you tried to call too. He never picks up. There were people working here before me? Yeah, most of them quit. Complained about work conditions. She squints at him a little before reaching into her pocket. Here. She gives him a handful of quarters. You can do what you want, but let me give you some free advice. This place was doing just fine when it was sitting here empty. It doesn't need a night guard, and you don't need to work for a man who doesn't care what happens to you. She turns to walk back to her car, shoulder-checking Mike on the way. It's sudden enough he almost falls over. Get a different job, Mike. There's nothing here worth staying for. She gets in her car and drives away. Mike watches her go, caught between confusion about what she said and irritation at being treated like that. Eventually, he just calls the number Dave gave him. Unfortunately, Vanessa was right. He gets no answer. He leaves a message asking if the animatronics have any programming active that makes them move at night, and with nothing else to do, he goes home. The call gave him no answers, but he doesn't really have any choice except to go home.
Well, I needed to set it move.
We cut to later in the day. It's Tuesday, and we're with Abby at school again. It's recess time, and Abby is trying to figure out what to do. She looks like she's thinking about joining the kids on the playground, but no, that probably won't end well. Especially not when she sees the group from yesterday. She goes to a secluded corner of the yard and sits by herself, dejected. It's clearly going to be a long recess. Hello. Abby startles and looks to see a man she doesn't know, standing on the other side of a chain-link fence. Sorry, I'm being so rude right now. I'm Dave Miller, your brother's new boss. You know Mike? Yeah, absolutely I know Mike. I just hired
I
him
also know
to-
Purple Guy.
He asked if I could go check on his sister while he's at school.
No, he frickin' didn't.
Your name's Abby, right?
Did he even tell her that he had a sister?
Suspicious, but seems to believe him. Dave sits down as the two start talking, each on the other side of the fence. He asks how she is, what's she interested in, how does her day usually go. He seems particularly interested in how long the school day is and what she gets up to when she's not there. After a few minutes, Dave says that he should probably get going. Recess is almost over and she needs to get back to class. Abby's a little confused by the interaction, but agrees that she probably should.
Oh, I
Dave
wasn't
asks
supposed to
her
take that.
please
I
not tell
goofed.
Jane or any of the teachers about him coming by. Jane might think that Mike is trying to get out of coming to see her when really he's just busy, and the teachers might tell Jane. Abby agrees and goes back inside, and Dave slips away, unseen by anyone but Abby. When Aunt Jane comes to pick up Abby, it's much the same as it was yesterday. Aunt Jane tries to ask her how her day was, and Abby is vague and unresponsive, going straight to her room when they get home. Jane watches her go, and her face is pinched and worried. She seems to come to a decision, and she makes a phone call, asking for a meeting with the headmaster. We return to later at night, where we're back at Mike's apartment. The security jacket Dave gave him is thrown over the back of the chair, and there's evidence that he's already done his avoid sleeping as long as possible routine, even though he now has a graveyard shift sleep schedule. We see him in bed, tossing and turning, and we enter into a familiar nightmare. It seems much the same as before. An idyllic family, just spending time with one another. Mike's mom asks him to watch Garrett, and he agrees but gets distracted.
Garrett!
But this time, when he turns around, it's not just Garrett that's gone. Everything is. The tent, his parents, the picnic table. Mike has changed too, becoming his adult self. He's staring around, doesn't understand. This nightly vision of the past is horrible, but he knows it. This isn't
I'm just
the way
gonna
it's supposed
reset.
to go. He's not
I don't
chasing
wanna
after a
try
car
to
that kidnapped
hit
his
it with
brother.
him on
He's
this
just
slow one like that.
alone, standing in the woods that are now strangely silent. The wind eventually rustles behind him, and he turns. Standing on the other side of the clearing is Garrett, staring at him. The two look at each other, Mike with disbelief, Garrett with an intensity and focus that doesn't fit on a face that young. Mike steps forward, hand lifting a little, like he wants to reach out. Garrett? Garrett remains still, then turns and runs into the woods. Mike runs after him, almost on instinct. Hey, wait! Garrett seems to appear and disappear at random, making him surprisingly hard to keep track of as the two run along. Eventually the trees open up again, and Mike stops short. In front of him is a washed-out version of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It looks
Freddy
sad and bare,
Fazbear.
completely out of place here. There's no way it could be in the childhood woods that Mike knows, but here it is. There's no
Bro's
more
got
trying
my
to
kind of
avoid
accuracy
seeing
when it
as
comes
Mike
to Zap
sees Garrett
Cannon.
disappearing into the building's
Bro, we
front
just
door.
missed all
Once again,
5 Zap
almost without
Cannons.
thinking.
The odds I got
Once
out of
again,
that fight are
the tension gets
immensely
even stranger.
low.
Unlike outside, the inside is alive and full of noise. There are all sorts of people here, families of all sizes, enjoying food and various games the place has to offer. It's strangely surreal seeing it so full, but it's even stranger because even though there are many conversations happening around him, Mike can't understand what anyone is saying. He knows words are being spoken, he can tell, but everything blends together. He tries to get the attention of parents and staff members, but no one seems to be able to see him. He's a witness here, not a participant. His attention is drawn to one of the children that's playing the arcade games. They're wearing a distinct pair of paper rabbit ears, but that's not what catches Mike's attention. Unlike everyone else in the restaurant, this child doesn't seem to have a face. Where there would be a face is just a blurry, smeared mess, like a wet canvas that someone's accidentally touched. They interact with everything the same as all the others, but the lack of face makes it seem uncanny and strange. The child eventually finishes their game and walks off to the side. They may not have a face, but it's pretty easy from the body language to tell that this child is bored. They don't seem to have a group to go back to. Mike starts to approach. Maybe he can interact with this uniquely faceless child, but his path is cut off by a strangely silent, enormous rabbit animatronic. At least, he thinks it's an animatronic. It doesn't quite move like one. He saw Bonnie walking the night before, and this rabbit doesn't have the robotic stiffness that Bonnie did. It's strangely unsettling to watch. The rabbit and the faceless child start talking to each other. Mike can't make out any of the words, but the rabbit is pointing to the child's ears and then at its own, and they seem to have a connection over it. The golden rabbit extends a hand to the child, beckoning. The faceless child takes it, and the two start walking towards a door. On the door is the familiar painting of Chica, proclaiming that it's staff only beyond this point. Mike understands on an instinctive level that something is wrong here. He starts walking after them, calling out to the faceless child, but neither seem to hear. As he takes a few steps, just as they reach the door, the floor seems to disappear out from under him, and he falls, plunging into darkness. He startles awake, back in his bed, in the real world. Eventually, he gets up and goes to the bathroom. He does his usual splash the face in the bathroom routine, but it's missing the weight of before because he's just baffled. His nights have always been restless, but at least he understood what was going on. What did he just see? Was this some strange vision his brain concocted from the stress of the night before? But that doesn't make sense. He doesn't remember his dreams except when they're the familiar nightmare of his past mistakes. He has no idea what to make of what he just saw. Eventually, though, his watch goes off, signaling that it's time to head in for work. So he tries to shake it off and focus on that instead. He arrives at Freddy's and goes to unlock the gate, but the key isn't in his pocket. What? He couldn't have dropped it, could he? He checks the other pocket, but the key isn't there either. He's starting to freak out. He never took it out. He never did anything. What happened? Where is it? As he's starting to panic, there's a familiar sound of tires over gravel. Mike turns and sees Vanessa stepping out of her police car. She sees him looking frazzled and stares a moment before rolling her eyes and tossing something at him. Mike catches it on instinct and looks down to see the key he'd lost a few seconds ago. I found it on one of my rounds after you left, right next to the door. If you're going to be a security guard, you should really keep better track of your things. Someone could have broken in. Mike isn't sure how to respond. Saying thank you feels like the right thing to do, but he doesn't think Vanessa would appreciate it, so he just says he'll be more careful. She just looks at him skeptically and doesn't show any signs of leaving, so he just unlocks the gate and goes in. Just before the door closes, she calls after him, suggesting that maybe he should look into other career paths. Once inside, Mike takes a second to breathe. He hesitantly approaches the animatronic stage, pulling the curtains back just slightly. The animatronics are all there, completely still. There's no sign that they've moved since the night before. Mike continues to look, particularly at Bonnie, before decisively closing the curtains. He looks at his watch. 10:07. Looks like he has a little bit of time. In a little montage, Mike proceeds to search the pizzeria top to bottom. He looks in every room, every closet, anywhere he can think of that someone might be hiding. He checks everything once, twice, making sure it's empty. There's an old supply room he finds with some windows, but most of them are boarded off, and the one that isn't is way too small for an adult to get through. There's a couple of other exits in the building, but they're all locked for some reason, which is concerning in and of itself, but it means no one can get in except through the entrance, so Mike doesn't think much of it. The only place he can't bring himself to enter is the backstage area, where the Golden Bear is. He tries to get up the courage, but after a moment, he just checks the door, and is pretty relieved to find that it's locked. He turns away, then turns back, just in case. The door stays locked. It's now time for his shift to start. Mike enters the office and prepares for the cameras to come on. He's a bit calmer than before. It's clear to him now that he either imagined the night before, or someone snuck in and pulled an extremely bizarre prank on him. Whoever it was clearly isn't here anymore, so this isn't going to be an issue. As long as he doesn't think about it too hard, Mike can convince himself that this is going to be a normal, boring 6 hours of watching almost broken cameras. And for a little while, Mike is right. Nothing seems to be happening, and he starts to relax. Then as he flicks through the cameras again, he sits up so fast he almost falls. Chica's gone from the main stage. Mike flicks through the cameras, the comm he'd been pretending to have vanishing completely. He goes through them once, twice. He can't find her. On the third go-around, though, he notices something. There's a camera that's only a black screen. Apparently it's for the kitchen. He hadn't paid it any attention, but he can actually hear something in that room. The clanging of pots and pans. Mike stares for a second. Dread building. Then he stands and forces his hesitation aside. He checked this place top to bottom before his shift, so there's no way Chica moved.
Not even gonna bother.
Someone's playing on him. But what other explanation is there? He needs to go look. There's a logical explanation for this, and the only way to find it is to go and see. Moving through the halls is even harder without the dim flashlight he had the night before, but thanks to his exploration a few hours ago, he manages to find the way. It gets a bit easier as he gets closer and he can hear the sounds and follow them. Arriving at the kitchen, he slowly pushes open the door. It's better lit than he expected, and it gives him full view of what Chica's doing. Instead of things being randomly thrown around like it sounded, there seems to be an intent on the way the animatronic is moving. She moves the pans from burner to burner, smacks the pots with a ladle, pretending to taste test something with an empty spoon. She looks, for all the world, like she's playing, pretending to be cooking something.
Of course I
It's a
flinched. I
bizarre,
mean,
endearing sight, and
Wow.
Mike, once again, has absolutely no idea how to respond. He'd convinced himself that when he checked, he'd find something rational, like a raccoon knocking things over. This is far beyond anything he could be expecting. The raccoon idea didn't make much sense, but it would have made more sense than what he's seeing right now. There's no real logical explanation for what's happening right now, but Mike isn't quite ready to accept that these guys might be moving on their own, so he tries to take control of the situation. He very hesitantly steps further into the kitchen and calls out, "Hey." The robot's head snaps towards him, and Mike immediately regrets what he did, but he tries to power through anyway, trying to call out to whoever might be playing a joke on him. Chica starts moving toward him, and she's not nearly as slow and methodical as Bonnie was. Mike backs out of the kitchen and into the hall, but Chica's surprisingly fast. She reaches him and grabs his arm, continuing to walk and nearly pulling him off his feet. She's much stronger than seems normal, pulling Mike along easily, even as he's struggling and digging his heels in. She's not affected by anything he tries to do to get her to let go, and she doesn't respond to any of his shouting or demands for explanation, just continuing to pull him toward a destination unknown. Somewhere in the struggle, something clicks in Mike's mind. This is real. There's no logical explanation for what's happening, but that doesn't change the fact that it is happening. These animatronics are moving on their own, and the only thing Mike knows for sure is that he does not want to go wherever this dead-eyed, massive thing is dragging him to. Mike struggles even harder, and even though he can't break Chica's hold, he manages to slip his arm out of the sleeve of the jacket. He manages to slip the rest of the way out and starts running back to the office. Chica turns to follow once she realizes she's holding only fabric, but Mike can be fast too when he wants to. He makes it back to the office and shuts the door behind him, flipping through the cameras. He can see Chica making her way to the office, and he tracks her progress through the camera. Before losing sight of her just outside the door, he clicks the light on and startles back. Chica is close to the glass, way too close. Her beak wide open and eyes staring. Somehow, paradoxically, he expects the glass to fog from her breathing, but that doesn't make sense. Chica's a robot, a weird one that shouldn't be moving, but shouldn't be breathing either. And yet, the absence of that tiny bit of fog makes her stillness all the more unsettling. Mike clicks the light off. Eventually, he hears heavy footsteps as the animatronic moves away, but he doesn't open the door until he hears the noises in the kitchen start again. His power level suffered, but Mike can't bring himself to care. Bonnie eventually leaves the stage as well, but no one else comes to the door that night. His watch signals 6 a.m. eventually, and the cameras remain on just long enough for Mike to see Bonnie and Chica return to the stage. The camera focuses on the power that was left, 8%, cutting it just a little close. Mike slowly leaves the office. He finds his security jacket discarded on the floor. He checks the pocket and finds that, thankfully, the padlock key is still there. As he leaves the building, he looks at the arm that Chica grabbed. It feels stiff, but there's no sign of bruising. He almost wishes there was some proof that it actually happened, but there's nothing. Mike exits the building and finds that Vanessa is still there. It doesn't look like she's moved since he went in at the start of his shift. Rev Knight in there? No, it was fine. Vanessa doesn't look like she believes him, but Mike is too tired to really care. He just wants to go home and think, or maybe try his best not to think. He starts towards his car, then pauses. Hey, Officer Vanessa? Just Vanessa's fine. Right, Vanessa. This is part of your regular patrol route, right? You come by pretty often? At night? Vanessa looks at him, raising an eyebrow. Mike takes that as a yes, and continues. Have you ever seen anything strange go on inside? Depends. What do you count as strange? I don't know, weird noises, or the animatronics moving by themselves. Have you ever seen the animatronics in there moving around at night? Just because. Vanessa eyes him for a second, then glibly tells him the animatronics haven't been active for years. Even if they did have a night mode, which they probably don't, why on earth would they be programmed to wander around? Honestly, Mike, you just seem tired. Exhaustion can do weird things to your head. I've seen it happen to all sorts of people. Not everyone is built to handle a night shift. If this is what you've been seeing, you should probably look at working somewhere else. As Vanessa talks, Mike's mood plummets even more. He's not sure why he bothered asking, since Officer Vanessa seems to only care about being condescending. He curtly tells her thanks and gets in his car, driving away annoyed, confused, and trying very hard to ignore the gnawing sense of dread that's starting to build in his chest. The ringing of a school bell transitions us to Wednesday morning at Abby's school. The bell is telling everyone it's time for recess, and everybody's trying to get outside, except for Abby. She lingers behind, and once everyone has left, she approaches the teacher and asks if she can stay inside.
Oh, frick off!
The teacher sternly
It's like, oh, you don't want to go out with me? Okay, then you're just gonna die then.
Outside for recess. Abby reluctantly obeys, facing the process of recess spent dodging her tormentors. They haven't seen her yet, so Abby makes her way to the edge of the recess area, trying her best not to draw attention to herself. She hears someone calling to her. It's Dave again, beckoning her closer as he stands on the opposite side of the fence. She approaches, still a bit cautious, but nothing bad happened when he talked to her yesterday, so he's probably fine to talk to. Dave and her start up a conversation, similar to their first, with Dave once again asking what she gets up to on a day-to-day basis. He also starts to ask some more personal questions. He sees so many children out and about, but Abby's by herself. Doesn't she have any friends to play with? Abby tells him that no, she doesn't. Dave is astounded. Surely, a nice girl like her must have some friends. Abby gets a bit annoyed and says no, she doesn't. She proceeds to go on a rant as she talks about how much she hates this school. Everyone here can tell she's different and doesn't want anything to do with her. And every time she tells one of the teachers what's been happening, they don't believe her, or they don't care. Dave is sympathetic, tilting his head to the side and nodding along as he talks, but his eyes are strangely sharp. He's started to get a picture of what Abby's life is like, and he's showing a lot more interest in it than is appropriate or normal, given the fact that he's a stranger. Abby eventually sits down, her anger fading into glumness. She said if she just
fading,
no one at school would even notice. Dave's interest gets even sharper, into something close to eagerness as he questions her. Really? You don't think anyone would miss you? Abby confirms, and he continues. None of the teachers? Not even your aunt or brother? Abby admits that Mike would probably worry if Aunt Jane called and told him, and Aunt Jane would probably be mad and upset maybe. As Abby is talking, we get a close-up of Dave. We see him glance up. His manic focus fades as he notices something Abby doesn't. On a close-up of Abby, she asks Dave if he thinks she did something wrong. When she doesn't get an answer, she looks up and finds that the other side of the fence is empty, like Dave was never there at all. She stands up and goes in for a closer look, calling out as she tries to figure out where he went. She's interrupted when her bullies arrive, demanding to know who she was talking to. Abby tries to cover her fear with defiance, saying that she was talking to her friend Dave. One of the bullies says he doesn't see anyone, with another saying that there shouldn't be anyone hanging around outside the fence. One of them sees this as an opportunity and starts snidely commenting.
No, there shouldn't.
He's so pathetic, she started imagining people to talk to. Abby denies this, insisting that Dave is real and was just here, but the bullies have found their theme for the day and start mercilessly making fun of her. Their viciousness eventually gets to Abby and she shoves past them, running away with tears in her eyes. She falls once as she's running, getting her uniform dirty. Eventually she finds another place to hide, where she sits and has a moment of quiet as tears begin to fall. There's a brief scene where we're back with Mike. He's listening to music and going through his daily routine of delaying sleep by cleaning his apartment top to bottom, but it doesn't seem to be working to distract him. The security jacket from Freddy's keeps catching his eye. Eventually, frustrated, he turns off his music and throws it onto his bed so he doesn't have to look at it as he's cleaning. As he turns to leave, he catches sight of the drawing Abby gave him. He picks it up, his demeanor softening a little bit. Before, he seems to consider something. We see him by the phone in his apartment, looking nervous. Eventually, he steels himself and punches in a number from memory. The phone rings a couple of times before Aunt Jane's voice instructs Mike to leave a message after the tone. Mike says hello to Aunt Jane and tells her he's gotten a job. It's a night shift, so his hours are a bit weird, but it means he should be available during the day for Abby on Saturday. He asks how Abby's been the past few days and rambles a bit, talking about how he's glad that he gets the chance to see her and he hopes that things are going okay. He says that if Abby wants to call, he's happy to answer, realizes that Aunt Jane probably wouldn't allow that, so he quickly adds, or if you'd rather call yourself to tell me what's going on, that's fine too. He winces. Jane calling him is even less likely than Abby doing it. Mike awkwardly ends the message with a thank you and a goodbye, then hangs up and puts his head in his hands. He'd been hoping that Abby would answer the phone and he'd be able to catch up with his sister, but now he just feels like an idiot. He gets up and heads to the couch.
Boinking.
The music couldn't distract him, but maybe the TV will. He flips through the channels and eventually finds a weird vampire-themed soap opera. It's not
Oh,
really
brother.
funny, but it's better than infomercials, so
That's funny.
as well. He lets it play in the background as he gets back to cleaning. Back at the school, the day's come to an end. Aunt Jane is there and has been for a while, judging by the tapping of her foot and her impatient expression. She seems annoyed, but there's an undercurrent of worry in her stance. As she glances between the watch and the area around, the worry seems to get more pronounced. It's been a while, and Abby still hasn't appeared. It's starting to get to her. In one of her glances around, she catches sight of a purple car parked a little way away from the school. She makes a face. What a terrible color for a car. It seems like Aunt Jane might just march straight in to find her niece, but then Abby appears, trudging out the front doors. Jane is relieved to see her, but also annoyed at her lateness. She starts to scold her for her tardiness, then, seeing that her uniform is dirty, she starts to scold her for that too. Somewhere in the middle of her tirade, she realizes that Abby looks like she's about to cry. She pulls up short and tries to ask what happened, but Abby isn't giving her any answers. Jane tries to push a bit more, and Abby starts to get angry, saying she doesn't want to talk about it. Eventually, Jane decides to just get them home. She tries several times along the way to start conversation or smooth over the initial angriness she had, but no luck. Abby gets less and less responsive as they head home, and eventually they just sit in silence. As per usual, as soon as they get home, Abby goes straight to her room, slamming the door behind her. She pulls out the familiar stuffed tiger and huddles under the covers, trying to hide from the world as best she can. Sometime later, Jane comes by, telling Abby it's time for dinner. Abby responds through the door, saying that she's not hungry. She sounds like she's been crying. Jane tries to cajole her out, saying that she made all her favorite foods, but there's no luck. Eventually, she decides to leave it alone. Back in the kitchen, Jane sits, at a loss about what to do. She notices that there's a message on the answering machine. She listens and finds that it's the message Mike left earlier, asking for updates and saying that he hopes things go well. Jane gets more despondent as she listens. A week ago, when Mike had come by, she'd felt so sure of herself when she said that Mike was a terrible influence and shouldn't be around Abby, but now she isn't so sure. In the face of Abby's continuing misery and Mike's earnest request to know how she is, her words from that day feel harsh and ill thought out. He's
Talking about a
certainly
Gen
wouldn't
3
be a
bang.
fit guardian for a recently traumatized child, but maybe she isn't either. These past few days have driven home that she might not be doing as well as she'd hoped in taking care of her niece. The message ends and the robotic voice starts reciting how to listen again or delete the message. Jane is too lost in thought to pay it any attention. Back with Mike in the apartment, he's abandoned cleaning in favor of leaning against the back of the couch, watching the soap opera intently. The episode ends, and the announcer says that the late rerun of Immortal and Restless Hearts will continue after a commercial break. As he mentions this, Mike checks his watch and is surprised at how much time he spent watching. Now that he's been made aware of it, he can feel exhaustion trying to pull him down. He turns off the TV and gets ready for bed. He's still apprehensive about actually going to sleep, but shakes it off. His shift is in a few hours, and falling asleep there would be much worse than falling asleep here. This time as he goes to sleep, there's no sign of the usual nightmare. He opens his eyes and he's already in the empty clearing, in the quiet woods, with just the slightest hint of wind. He turns once again and finds Garrett waiting, staring at him. Just like
Garrett.
Garrett
You
holds
say
his gun
Carrot
before
one more.
running off in the trees. Mike chases him again, calling his name and trying to get him to slow down. This time it isn't a surprise when the pizzeria appears, but Mike still pulls up before he enters. Garrett stops just before entering, meeting Mike's eyes before disappearing inside. After a moment's hesitation, Mike follows. The inside is bright and busy, with many different families bustling around. Like before, Mike can't understand what's being said, but this time, an occasional clear word just barely makes it through the wall of noise. Mike is looking around for Garrett, but a sound catches his attention. It takes a while to hear it over everyone else, but he recognizes it. Someone, a child, they're crying. He eventually finds a girl curled up in the corner, her face pressed to her knees. She looks very young, with blonde hair arranged in 2 pigtails. Mike feels like he's intruding, but he doesn't want to leave her there all alone. He crouches down and gets close, gently calling out to her. She looks up and Mike jumps. Like the child from the night before, where there should be a face, is a blank, smeared mess. He's closer than before, so he can see the blankness is shifting slightly. Like whatever's making it unseen can't decide what type of nothing should be there. He manages to recover a little and tries to talk to her, asking what's wrong. She looks up a little more, and for a second he thinks that she can actually hear what he's saying, but then a shadow falls over him. He turns and sees the same yellow rabbit from the night before, again, moving in a way that no animatronic should be capable of. It crouches down to talk to the girl. It was the thing she was looking at the whole time. As before, Mike is an observer, not a participant. The rabbit seems to ask a question, and the girl starts crying in earnest as she answers. Mike can hear the crying just fine, but the words, they're still garbled and indiscernible. This, paired with her wiping eyes that don't seem to exist, makes the scene entirely uncanny. The rabbit tilts its head and nods along as she speaks, appearing generally sympathetic to whatever she's saying. Eventually, it reaches out a hand, beckoning her to come closer. She takes the hand, and the two start walking to that same staff-only door that the rabbit child went through the night before. Mike feels that same sinking sense of dread. He starts to follow, but something's wrong. His body is moving, but he can't get any closer. Even when he breaks into a jog and then a run, he's barely making any progress. The two have reached the door. The girl points to the Chica cartoon, and the rabbit nods reassuringly before gesturing for her to walk through. There's a second of hesitation, and then she does. The rabbit turns around briefly to scan the room. Its eyes pass over Mike, not seeing him at all, but he flinches anyway. He's suddenly able to make progress again, rushing forward. The rabbit slips through the door, and it shuts with a definitive click that carries more than it should. Mike is slammed back into reality, gasping for air. It takes him a second to realize that he's even awake, and then he sits, trying to recover. Cutting to the kitchen, Mike fills a glass of water and takes slow sips. He's more conflicted than confused this time. He can dismiss one strange dream, but this feels like the start of a pattern, and not one that he likes very much. He doesn't have time to think about it, though, because his watch is beeping. It's time to start heading to Freddy's. As Mike pulls up to the pizzeria, he sees that Vanessa's
Heading to Freddy.
is already there. By now, he knows
Are you
what she's
ready
going
for
to say,
Freddy?
and he's getting a little tired of it. Just like he thought, as soon as he steps out, Vanessa starts talking. She keeps up a running commentary about how terrible this job is, with awful hours, and honestly, Mike looks exhausted. He should really be looking for something else. Mike does his best to unlock the gate and get into
You're starting to
the
get
building
annoying
as
with
fast as
that.
possible, so he can avoid participating in the conversation. He makes some vague noises of affirmation, then slips inside and shuts the door, cutting Vanessa off mid-sentence. She seems a bit taken aback, frowning at the door that Mike just disappeared through. Inside, Mike relaxes a little. He can acknowledge that maybe ignoring a police officer wasn't his best move, but she's done nothing but tell him how terrible the job is and how terrible he's doing at it. Honestly, doesn't she have anything better to do? It's as dark and dusty inside as ever. Mike doesn't linger too long this time, only taking a moment to peek behind the curtains and assure himself that everyone is in their proper place. In the office, he sits to wait for his shift to start, but he remembers something. Wasn't there a stack of maintenance guides somewhere in here? Dave hasn't gotten back to him, but maybe they can tell him a bit about what's going on. Once he finds them, though, the books seem to be a letdown. They're mostly instructions for repair and cleaning, which isn't what he needs. There's instructions for how to recalibrate animatronics if they start moving oddly during a performance, but nothing about them leaving the stage on their own. There's nothing to explain why they move at night, and definitely not anything to explain Chica's weird kitchen behavior. He gets a bit excited when he sees there's a section on changing the hours in which an animatronic is active, but when he turns there, he finds the pages have been ripped out. The whole thing is a total dead end. There's no time to mourn the loss, though. The cameras flicker on, and his shift starts. He sets aside the books and tries to focus. His problem the past few nights has been that he's left the office, which is clearly the wrong thing to do. But Mike thinks he understands the rules now. He just has to stay in the office and close the door if anyone comes to see him. He's still not sure what will happen if they catch him, but he's starting to think he never wants to know. As the night progresses, Mike sees that it's a good thing he started taking this more seriously. Both Bonnie and Chica move around a lot more, wandering around in unpredictable ways. The cameras aren't that reliable, and he loses track of them several times. They only show up at the doors a few times, but it's a few times too many for his taste. The fox looks like it moves too, slowly poking its nose out from the stage, but it looks like it ducks back a little whenever he looks at it, so he makes sure to cycle through every once in a while, just to see what's happening. We occasionally get shots of the battery meter as it slowly trickles down. The night is getting close to ending, but Mike's nerves are totally shot. Both Bonnie and Chica are at his doors, and he has a moment of hysterical rage as he yells at them,
1969, let's go.
"Come on!"
We're gonna win this time.
To his surprise, that seems to work. Bonnie is gone when he checks, and Chica leaves just a few seconds after. He's relieved, but the pause is interrupted by a new sound. A deep, unnatural laugh echoes through the building. For a second, all Mike can do is stand there, uncomprehending, frozen. Then he moves, quickly checking the cameras. What could have made a sound like that? He can hear Chica in the kitchen, and Bonnie doesn't look any different, so what was it? After a moment, he sees
My neck, dude.
Freddy isn't on the main stage anymore. He cycles through the cameras a little
My neck's been
frantically
hurting a lot
before he
lately.
finally notices. In the dining area, there's a pair of eyes, just visible, shining from the dark. Through the speakers, he can just barely hear the sound of a music box playing. Mike can only stare. Everything he's experienced is weird, but this feels worse somehow. The idea of Freddy moving just feels bad. And those eyes shining in the dark, there's something here that isn't natural.
I guess
Mike
not.
finds himself staring, unwilling and maybe even unable to take his eyes off of something that he knows somehow is dangerous. He flinches back suddenly as several images come flashing through his head. Orange and red, curtains caught in motion, a small sign flickering between "It's me" and "Sorry," out of order. As he startles backwards, the cameras change on their own, flipping to Pirate Cove. The fox is gone, the curtains still settling from a sudden departure. Mike switches the camera. Foxy is sprinting down the hall. Foxy lunges into the room with a scream, hook flashing through the air. Mike throws up his arms instinctively, falling as he's hit. Fox takes another step and freezes. From the floor, arms still up, Mike becomes aware of a different sound. His watch is beeping. 6 a.m. Foxy turns and leaves. His
Purple
movements feel
guy.
mechanical, totally different from the smooth running that just happened. Mike is stunned, unable to get up from the floor as the sounds of him leaving slowly fade. Eventually he gets up and numbly
They
checks the
slowly
cameras.
what?
Everyone is back in their proper places, like none of them ever moved at all.
Ooh,
Camera
ow,
flares go down to
ow,
2%
ow.
before the clock rolled over. As adrenaline fades, Mike becomes more aware of the pain in his arm. There's a significant gash there, steadily trickling blood. Mike moves on autopilot, slowly heading towards the entrance. He's hurt. He got hurt at work. People get hurt at work sometimes. That's normal, right? He can deal with this. He has medical supplies at home, probably. Maybe. Just needs to get home. He's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. He can handle this. It's fine. He freezes as he reaches the
Is it
dining
fine?
area. Everything is quiet. Still. That should be a relief,
Oops.
but it just makes him tense up. He turns and stares at Pirate Cove, at the unmoving red curtains and the tiny sign reading, "Sorry, out of order." Mike's mind goes unbidden to the possibility. What would have happened if Foxy had been just a few seconds earlier? Bonnie's approach and Chica's chicken antics he can maybe blame on old, faulty machinery and programming gone strange, but Foxy? His arm curls around the still bleeding gash. This hadn't been a malfunctioning robot swinging wildly. There'd been intent in Foxy's movements. Foxy had wanted to hurt him, which means that in all likelihood everything here wants to hurt him. He remembers the eyes in the dark, the deep echoing laugh. There's a level of unnatural here that defies any logical explanation he can come up with. And Mike feels with an awful certainty that something is deeply wrong with this place. And he's right in the middle of it. It's too much. Whatever was keeping Mike frozen snaps away as he rushes for the door, almost running. He needs to get out of here, to get away, get out of this building, to get in his car, drive away, and blast his music so he can stop thinking about what on earth he managed to get himself into. Whoa! Where are you going in such a hurry? Mike gets startled out of his
She's
spiral
just
as Vanessa
there?
stops him at the door. He'd completely forgotten that she was.
How is she just always there?
He tries to answer, but he's completely disoriented, his mind still running in circles around the idea that he needs to get out of here right now. Vanessa listens to him stammer before she starts her usual line of thinking, telling Mike that as he's this out of sorts from a simple night shift, he should probably work somewhere else. She goes to continue, but then she sees how Mike is gripping one of his arms. She takes a closer look, she realizes he's been injured, and her demeanor completely changes. She seems genuinely concerned when she tells him that this needs to be looked at. Mike is even more confused at this change and tries to tell her it's fine, he can take care of it at home, but Vanessa...
Follow me.
She insists that no, they need to look at this now, and immediately goes into the pizzeria he just ran out of. Mike is horrified and impulsively says, "No, don't!" as he follows her. He jolts to a stop as he enters and realizes what he's done. The dining area sits in front of him, empty and dusty as it ever was. Vanessa has stopped too, looking at him impatiently and asking, "What's the holdup?" Mike tries to answer, but he's at a loss. This place had felt so awful just a second ago, but coming in with another person, the panic he felt feels strange and out of place. Nothing about this place seems frightening now that it's past 6. What can he possibly say that wouldn't make him sound insane? Vanessa gets tired of waiting and puts a hand on his shoulder, leading him through the dining area. Mike lets her.
Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream a little bit early. Because I got some people here. I didn't even realize that they were coming. So, I'm just gonna throw this attempt away, who cares? Let me just write it down real quick. Thank you guys for watching.